Kwe kwe. Nabakwi halama. Nitli wizi malia. Banawupske we know. New jaya we al nabe manahan. Banawupskeg. Nabakwi nakwazian. I introduced myself in Penobscot and welcomed you. It's my ancestral language and the language indigenous to this territory. I said hello and welcome. My name is Maria, and I am Penobscot. I come from the People's Island, a place in the river where the rocky ledges spread wide, and it is good to see you tonight. Penobscot people are one of 5 Wabanaki tribes still in existence today. Let me see if I can get this to work. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk to you about the word Wabanaki, because it really is quite beautiful and significant, I believe. Wabanaki describes the place where the first light of a new dawn first touches Turtle Island. In our language, Wabanaki translates as Chwaban, the period of time just before the new dawn breaks, and Aki, the land of that place. And Wabanaki refers collectively to the Passamaquoddy, the Penobscot, the Micmac, the Maliseet, and the Abenaki people, the indigenous peoples of this territory. Archaeologists say that Wabanaki people have been here for 10 to 11,000 years. But many Wabanaki say that we have been here forever, that the Creator placed us here. Earliest explorers arriving in Wabanaki homelands would have heard a language similar to what you heard me speak here tonight. And Wabanaki women commonly welcomed visitors to the territory, oftentimes with an offering of a song or corn or tobacco. In fact, one of the earliest explorers of this territory where we're now gathering, Casco, Captain Christopher Levitt recorded in his journal a gracious welcome that he received from a woman who he described as the queen of this territory of Casco. She welcomed them as guests. But it would soon become too dangerous for Wabanaki women to be welcoming strangers. The guests had turned hostile. And by the late 1600s, Casco had a new name. It was referred to as Majigon, or the bad town. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit of what happened here in Wabanaki land. Ancestral waterways, rivers and streams were obstructed and dammed, and the fisheries, the Wabanaki's primary source of food, was destroyed. Traditional hunting and gathering grounds were deforested and spoiled so that the large game went away and the Wabanaki people faced severe starvation. Along the Penobscot River, Penobscot people found themselves head-to-head with the burgeoning lumber capital of the world, just downriver in Bangor. Racial hostilities and death permeated the landscape. Hundreds of Wabanaki children were taken from their homes, from their communities, away from their tribes, and placed in Indian residential boarding schools where the publicly stated goal was to, quote, kill the Indian and save the man, end quote. Children were severely abused for simple infractions such as speaking their native tongue, a language similar to what you heard tonight, a language now considered endangered. Yet some people hesitate to call what happened here in Wabanaki land to my ancestors a genocide. Some think genocide is a thing of the past. Some think the topic of genocide is best left in the past. It happened so long ago and it's so depressing, why bring it up now? Well, it is depressing. And the truth about genocide in the indigenous peoples of this territory, now known as Maine, needs to be known. The truth needs to be told because we are still suffering and living in the wake of genocidal policies and practices. And because repeated and accumulative assaults against Native peoples in this territory have not ceased. Wabanaki people are still fighting for their inherent right to fish. Penobscot people are still fighting against territorial dispossession. And another important reason that we recognize the genocide in this territory is because we are all participants in an age-old clash of cultures, and together we are writing our grandchildren's history. So the truth about genocide, the Native American genocide, is that it is the largest genocide that has ever occurred on this planet. Since first contact with European invaders, natives in this territory experienced a 98% population depletion. That's a lot of aunties and uncles and mums and dads who never made it home. And in Maine, the statistics follow the national trend. There was once 20 distinct Wabanaki tribes in this state, and now there are but 5. So how does this happen? One wonders. The colonizing government entered into numerous treaty agreements with the tribes of this territory, many of them peace treaties. Every single treaty was broken. And blatant genocidal tactics, such as the Spencer Phipps Proclamation of 1755, placed a bounty on the scalps of Wabanaki men, women, and children. And it wasn't that long ago. 1755 was my great-grandmother's generation. They had to stay alive during a period in our history where hunting Indians made people a lot of money. The average pay that a person could receive for a native scalp was equivalent to a teacher's annual wages at that time. One of the places where colonists could go and turn in skins, deer skins or beaver pelts or red skins, was just 40 miles north from here in Wiscasset. And still, many residents of that town don't see what the big deal is about perpetuating the word Redskins. They say it's an honor. And just a couple more contemporary historical tidbits to contemplate. This new country of America was presumably founded on the principles of religious freedom, right? Except it was illegal for Native Americans to practice their own religion and spirituality until passage of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act in 1978. 78. And so the Wabanaki people could not enjoy the solace of their drums or their ceremonies publicly while they were experiencing their most dismal days of survival. Wabanaki people just didn't automatically receive the same rights as everyone else. Take the right to vote, for instance. The right to vote was not received by Wabanaki people here in the state of Maine until 1958 for a federal election, decades after black suffrage, decades after women's suffrage. And for a state election, Wabanaki people were not allowed to vote until 1967. They had no say or participation in this colonizing government. So the stories really are endless. I could go on and on. But we only have so much time here together, and in my experience, people can only hear so much before they don't want to hear anymore. So I want to leave it at that, but I do want to talk about something that's really quite amazing. Everything that Native peoples have had to endure has been prophesized by my ancestors. A series of prophecies, now referred to as the 7 Fires prophecies, describe all these eras or epochs through which Native peoples were going to have to live. Each era or epoch was called a fire. The 7th fire in the 7th Fire's prophecies talks about a time when the world is befouled, when the rivers and the waters run bitter with disrespect, and the fish become too poison and unfit to eat. It seems to me, sadly, that we've reached that time now. So what's next, you might wonder? What's next is a period of great hope, has been prophesized. Some ancestors call it the Great Healing. Many believe we are entering the times of the Great Healing now. But the Great Healing is not a spectator sport. It's a critical call to action. All peoples of all races and religions must come together and work for the good of all. And in order for any change or healing to take place, the truth must be told and received on compassionate ears. There's a beautiful quote that I love from the 1800s. Old John Neptune, Penobscot Lieutenant Chief, in the mid-1800s, he spoke before a judge in a courtroom where Penobscot was being tried for murder. He talked to the judge about the inequity of the law, where white men could slaughter Indian men, but Indian men acting in retaliation were murdered. He said to the judge, "Peace is good. Indian people, my people, they know it well. They smile under the shade of peace. The white man and the red man must always be friends, because the Great Spirit is our Father." I just love that quote. Interestingly enough, our traditional teachings tell us that this new change, this new move towards a new harmonious world will begin in the East. And it is supposed to sweep across Turtle Island like the dawn of a new day. So here we are, perfectly positioned in Wabanaki land, where the light from a new day first touches Turtle Island. Gamach Maliwani, Nabakwa Nagwazian. Thank you very much. You are pleasing to the eye. I'm glad you are here. Our ancestors have been expecting us.